Rosie Dawson stopped walking. Her legs wouldn't move no more. The Texas sun had cooked the earth so hot she could feel it burning through what was left of her shoes. Billy had stopped crying 2 miles back. That scared her more than anything. "Take my brother," she whispered to nobody, practicing the words she'd say when she found somebody. Anybody. "Take my brother instead of me. I'm already ruined. He ain't." She looked down at the burns on her arm, Uncle Garrett's parting gift. Then she saw the fence posts rising up from the heat shimmer, and a man, standing there, watching her come. If you want to know what happened next, subscribe to our channel and follow Rosie's story to the very end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. July of 1878 started like every other summer in West Texas. Hot enough to kill a man who wasn't paying attention. Hot enough to drive folks to do terrible things for a drink of water. Tom McAllister had seen plenty of terrible things in his 48 years. He'd been a Texas Ranger for 15 of them. Tracked outlaws through desert that would strip the meat off your bones. Buried partners who caught bullets meant for him. Came home to find his wife Caroline and his little girl Sarah cold in their beds, taken by the yellow fever while he was chasing some no-account horse thief 3 counties over. That was 4 years ago. 4 years of living alone on this ranch. 4 years of talking to nobody but his horses and the occasional supply wagon driver. 4 years of waking up every morning and wondering why he bothered. He was fixing the south fence when he saw her. At first, Tom thought the heat was playing tricks on him. The shimmer off the hardpan made everything look like it was melting, moving, breathing. But this shape kept coming, getting bigger, getting clearer. A child, carrying something, stumbling like a drunk on a Saturday night. Tom dropped his hammer and started walking. Then he started running. The girl went down when she was maybe 50 feet from his fence line, just dropped like somebody cut her strings. The bundle in her arms hit the dirt and started crying. Weak little mules that sounded more like a kitten than a baby. Tom vaulted the fence and got to her in 3 heartbeats. "Hey now." He knelt down, afraid to touch her. She looked like she might break. "Hey, can you hear me?" The girl's eyes fluttered open. One clear blue eye looked up at him. The other was swollen nearly shut, purple and yellow with bruising. Her lips were cracked and bleeding, and her right arm, Lord have mercy, her right arm was covered in burns. Blisters and raw flesh from her wrist halfway to her elbow. "Please," she croaked out. "Please, mister." "I got you. I got you both." Tom reached for the baby. The girl's arms tightened around the bundle, even though she barely had the strength to breathe. "No." Her voice was a whisper. "Take him. Take him instead of me." Tom went still. "What did you say?" The girl's good eye focused on him, clear, certain. The eyes of somebody who'd made peace with dying. "Take my brother. He's perfect. He's good. He just needs milk and shade, and somebody to care for him." She swallowed hard. "You don't gotta take me. I'm damaged goods. My arm don't work right no more. I'm just another mouth to feed. But Billy, he's worth saving." Tom felt something crack open in his chest. Something that had been sealed shut for 4 years. "How old are you, girl?" 10, sir." 10 years old and you think you ain't worth saving? "I know I ain't." She said it simple, like she was stating the weather. "Uncle Garrett told me so, right before he put my arm in the fire." Tom looked at those burns again, looked at the pattern of them. 4 fingers and a thumb, wrapped around a small arm, pressing it down onto something hot. Somebody had held this child's arm to a stove. "What's your name?" Rosalie Dawson, sir. Folks call me Rosie. And the baby? William. Billy. He's 14 months. He's hungry, sir. So hungry. We ain't had nothing for 2 days. Tom stood up. He didn't say another word, just scooped up both children, one in each arm, and started walking toward his house. Mister, Rosie's voice was confused. Mister, I said you don't gotta take me. I heard what you said. Then why? Tom kicked open his front door and carried them inside. The relative cool of the dark house hit them like a blessing. He laid Rosie down on the settee by the window, then took Billy to the kitchen. Because I ain't in the habit of leaving children to die in the sun, he said over his shoulder. And because anybody who'd ask me to save her baby brother before herself is exactly the kind of person worth saving. He pumped water into a bowl, found a clean rag, dipped it, brought it to Rosie first. Small sips. You drink too fast, you'll sick it right back up. She sucked at that wet rag like it was the last water on earth, which, for her, it might have been. Billy, she tried to sit up. Billy needs it more. Billy's next. You first. But, girl, Tom's voice was firm. You want to help your brother, you got to be alive to do it. Now drink. She drank. Small sips, like he said. Her good eye never left his face, watching him like he might turn mean any second. Tom had seen that look before, on horses that had been beaten, on dogs that had been kicked. The look of a creature waiting for the next blow. He got milk from the cold cellar, warmed it gentle over the stove, found the old bottle he'd kept from when Sarah was a baby. He'd meant to throw it away 100 times, never could bring himself to do it. Now he knew why. Billy latched onto that bottle like he'd never let go. His little hands grabbed at it, his cheeks working, his eyes closing in pure baby bliss. He's eating, Rosie whispered. He's really eating. He's gonna be fine. How do you know? Tom looked at her. This broken little bird with her burned arm and her bruised face and her eyes that had seen too much. Because I'm gonna make sure of it, he said. Both of you. Rosie started crying then, quiet tears sliding down her dusty cheeks. She didn't make a sound. Tom got the feeling she'd learned a long time ago that crying out loud brought nothing but more pain. He found more clean rags, some of Martha's old salve that she used to make for burns and cuts. Knelt down beside the settee and took Rosie's damaged arm, gentle as he could. This is gonna sting. I know. She didn't flinch when he started cleaning the burns. Didn't make a peep. Just watched him with that old soul look. How long ago did this happen? 3 days, maybe 4. Hard to keep track. And you walked here? Through the desert? Had to. Uncle Garrett said he was going to send us east to one of them's orphan asylums. Said Billy wouldn't survive the trip. But it didn't matter none. Said we was too expensive to keep. Tom's hands kept working, gentle and steady, even though his blood was starting to boil. So you ran? Yes, sir. In this heat? With a baby? With your arm like this? Yes, sir. Rosie's voice got small. Was it wrong? Tom finished wrapping her arm in clean bandages, stood up, looked down at this child who'd walked through hell to save her brother. It was the bravest thing I ever heard of, he said, and I was a Texas Ranger for 15 years. For the first time, something like hope flickered in Rosie's good eye. Then they heard the horses. Tom was at the window in 2 steps. His hand went to his hip, found empty air. His gun belt was still hanging by the door. 3 riders coming up the road, moving fast. The one in front was a heavy-set man in a city suit that had no business being in this country. He was red-faced and sweating, and even from this distance, Tom could see the fury on him. Rosie had gone dead white. "It's him," she breathed. "It's Uncle Garrett." Stay here. Tom strapped on his gun belt, checked his Colt. Don't make a sound. Don't come out, whatever you hear.
Mr.
What's your name again?
Rosie. Rosie Dawson.
Rosie. Tom put his hand on the door. I ain't gonna let him take you. You understand? Whatever happens out there, you and your brother are staying right here. He walked out onto the porch before she could answer. The three riders pulled up in his yard. The heavy-set man in front swung down from his horse like he owned the place. The two men behind him stayed mounted. Hard-looking types. Hired guns, Tom figured. The kind you found in any trail town, selling their trigger fingers to whoever paid best. You Tom McAllister? The heavy-set man demanded. Depends who's asking. Garrett Whitmore. I'm looking for 2 children.
A girl and a baby. They belong to me.
Nobody belongs to nobody, Mr. Whitmore. This is Texas, not the old South. Garrett's face went from red to purple. Those children are my legal wards. Their father was my cousin. He died, and the courts gave them to me. They ran away 3 days ago, and I've been searching ever since. He pulled out a folded paper. I have the documents right here. I don't care if you got a letter from God Almighty. Tom's hand rested easy on his gun belt. I ain't seen no children. Don't lie to me, McAllister. I tracked them this direction. Someone saw them heading toward your property. Someone saw wrong. Garrett took a step toward the house. Tom took a step to block him. I'd stop right there if I was you.
Are you threatening me?
I'm telling you that you ain't going in my house. You want to stand in my yard and flap your gums? That's your business. But you take one more step toward that door, and we're going to have a problem. The 2 hired guns exchanged looks. One of them let his hand drift toward his holster. I wouldn't, Tom said, not even looking at him. I put down faster men than you before breakfast. Garrett's eyes were calculating now, measuring. He was a banker, Tom figured, a money man, the kind who fought with paper and lawyers, not bullets. You're making a serious mistake, Garrett said. I have the law on my side. Then go get the law. Bring the sheriff. Bring a judge. Bring the whole damn territorial court. But until you do, you're trespassing on my property, and I want you gone. Those children are mine, I said, gone. The word hung in the hot air. Tom's hand hadn't moved from his belt. His eyes hadn't blinked. He looked like what he was, a man who'd killed before and would do it again without losing sleep. Garrett stepped back, mounted his horse. His face was ugly with rage, but he wasn't stupid enough to push it. This isn't over, McAllister. I'll be back with the sheriff, and when I am, you'll answer for this, for harboring runaways, for interfering with legal guardianship, for everything. I look forward to it. Garrett wheeled his horse around, stopped, looked back over his shoulder. That girl, he said. She tell you I burned her arm? Tom said nothing. She's a liar, McAllister. A dirty little liar. She fell into the stove. An accident. Ask anyone in town. Garrett's smile was thin and cruel. But accidents happen out here, don't they? In the desert. In the heat. Accidents happen all the time. He rode off. His hired guns followed. Tom watched them until they were nothing but dust on the horizon. Then he went back inside. Rosie was sitting up on the settee, Billy clutched to her chest. Her face was wet with tears, but her jaw was set hard. He's coming back, she said. He always comes back. I know. You should have let us go with him. Her voice was bitter, defeated. Now he's going to hurt you too. That's what he does. He hurts everybody who helps us. Tom pulled up a chair, sat down so he was eye level with her. Rosie, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I need you to tell me the truth, the whole truth. Can you do that? She nodded slowly. Your daddy. How did he die?
Mine accident. The support beams collapsed. That's what Uncle Garrett said.
But you don't believe him. Her good eye filled with tears.
The night before Daddy died, I saw Uncle Garrett, out by the mine. It was late, real late, and I couldn't sleep. I looked out my window and I saw him going into the equipment shed.
What was he doing?
I don't know. I was too far away, but he was in there a long time. And the next day,
she choked on a sob.
The next day they told me my daddy wasn't coming home.
Tom felt cold, despite the heat. What about your mother?
Mama died when Billy was born. Uncle Garrett said it was because the birth was hard, but...
Rosie's voice dropped to a whisper.
But Mama was sick for weeks before. Sick in a way that didn't make sense. And Uncle Garrett, he was the one who brought her medicine, every day. He said the doctor gave it to him.
Did you tell anyone this?
I tried to tell the sheriff, back in Dusty Springs, but Sheriff Patterson, he owes money to Uncle Garrett's bank. Everybody owes money to Uncle Garrett's bank.
Rosie looked at Tom with eyes that had seen too much truth.
That's how he controls them. That's how he controls everything.
Tom sat back in his chair. This wasn't just about 2 runaway children. This was about murder. Maybe 2 murders. And a man who owned enough of a town to cover it up. Rosie, you listen to me. He leaned forward. I know you don't have any reason to trust grown-ups. Sounds like every grown-up in your life has let you down. But I'm going to make you a promise, and I need you to believe it.
What kind of promise?
The kind I ain't never broken in 48 years. Tom held her gaze.
I'm not going to let that man hurt you again. I'm not going to let him take you away, and I'm not going to let him get away with what he'd done to your family. How?
Her voice was small but desperate.
How can you stop him? He's got money. He's got the law. He's got everything.
Tom stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the empty horizon where Garrett Whitmore had disappeared. He ain't got me, he said, and that's going to be his problem. 3 hours later, just as the sun was starting to think about setting, another rider came up the road. This one was alone. This one wore a badge. Tom met Sheriff Jake Callahan on the porch. Jake. Tom. The sheriff swung down from his horse. He was a lean man, weathered by years of hard living, with eyes that had seen both the best and worst of human nature. Got a complaint filed against you. I figured. Garrett Whitmore says you're holding his wards against their will. Garrett Whitmore is a lying son of a bitch. Jake's eyebrows went up. Strong words. You want to see what that lying son of a bitch did to one of them wards? Tom jerked his thumb toward the house. Got a 10-year-old girl in there with burns on her arm. Finger marks. Somebody held her down on a hot stove. The sheriff's face changed. The professional neutrality cracked, just for a second, showing something harder underneath. Whitmore claims she fell. And you believe that? I didn't say that. Jake took off his hat, wiped his brow. I'm saying what he claims. What I believe is a different matter. Then come inside, see for yourself. Tom led the sheriff into the house. Rosie was sitting on the settee, Billy asleep in her arms. When she saw the badge, she flinched back like she'd been hit. It's all right, Tom said. This is Sheriff Callahan. He's here to help. No, he ain't. Rosie's voice was flat. Lawmen don't help. They do what Uncle Garrett tells them. Jake Callahan knelt down so he was at her eye level. His voice was gentle. I ain't Sheriff Patterson, little miss. I don't know Garrett Whitmore a dime. And I don't take orders from nobody but my own conscience. He looked at her arm. May I see? Rosie looked at Tom. He nodded. Slowly, she unwrapped the bandages. Jake Callahan had been a lawman for 23 years. He'd seen gunshot wounds, knife wounds, rope burns on hanged men. He'd seen things that would turn a normal man's stomach. But when he saw that little girl's arm, his face went pale. Sweet Jesus.
Uncle Garrett did it,
Rosie said quietly.
I wouldn't sign the papers. The papers that said he could sell Daddy's mine. So he put my arm on the stove, and he held it there. And he said he'd do the same to Billy if I didn't sign.
Did you? Sign?
No, sir. Her chin came up, just a little. That mine belonged to my daddy. It's supposed to belong to me and Billy now. I ain't giving it to the man who killed him.
Jake looked at Tom. Tom looked back. Neither of them said anything for a long moment. Then Jake stood up. I can't arrest him. Not yet. All I got is the word of a child against a man who's got documents and lawyers and the ear of every politician in 3 counties.
So that's it?
Tom's voice was hard.
He walks free?
I didn't say that. Jake put his hat back on. I said I can't arrest him yet. But I can make sure those children stay right here while we figure this out. Temporary custody. Emergency circumstances. I got the authority to do that much.
And when Whitmore comes back with his lawyers?
Then we'll deal with that when it happens. Jake headed for the door. Stopped. Turned back. Tom, you know what you're getting into here? Garrett Whitmore ain't just some small-town banker. He's got connections, money, influence. You cross him, he'll make your life hell. My life's already been hell for 4 years. Tom glanced at Rosie, at Billy sleeping peaceful in her arms. Maybe it's time for that to change. After the sheriff left, Tom made supper. Nothing fancy. Beans, cornbread, some dried beef. But Rosie ate like it was a feast, and Billy gummed at his cornbread with the fierce determination of a baby who'd been hungry too long.
Mr. McAllister?
Rosie's voice was hesitant. Tom. You can call me Tom.
Tom.
She tested the name.
Why are you doing this? Helping us, I mean. You don't know us. We ain't nothing to you.
Tom set down his fork, thought about how to answer. You're right, he said finally. You ain't nothing to me. Not yet. But 4 years ago, I had a little girl about your age. Her name was Sarah, and she got sick while I was away, chasing some outlaw who didn't matter none. By the time I got home, she was gone. Her and her mother both. Rosie's eye went soft.
I'm sorry.
Me too. Tom picked up his fork again. I spent 4 years blaming myself. 4 years thinking if I'd just been home, I could have saved them. 4 years wondering what was the point of living if I couldn't protect the people who mattered. He looked at her. Then you came walking out of that desert, carrying your baby brother, ready to die so he could live. He shook his head. I don't know if God sent you or if it was just dumb luck. But I know this. I wasn't there for my little girl when she needed me. I'm going to be here for you. Rosie didn't say anything, but when she finished eating, she reached across the table and touched his hand. Just for a second, light as a butterfly. It was enough. That night, Tom gave Rosie and Billy the bedroom. He'd sleep on the settee, he said. Keep watch in case Whitmore decided to try something in the dark.
Tom?
Rosie stood in the doorway, Billy already asleep in the bed behind her.
What's going to happen tomorrow?
I don't know.
Are you scared?
Tom thought about it, really thought. No, he said. I ain't scared. I spent 4 years being scared of living, scared of caring about anything, scared of losing something else. He looked at her. You and your brother, you reminded me of something I forgot.
What's that?
That some things are worth fighting for, even if you might lose. Rosie smiled, small, uncertain, but real.
Good night, Tom.
Good night, Rosie. She closed the door. Tom sat in the dark, his rifle across his knees, watching the road through the window. Somewhere out there, Garrett Whitmore was planning his next move, gathering his resources, calling in his favors. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. But tonight, for the first time in 4 years, Tom McAllister wasn't alone. And that, he figured, was worth more than all the fights in the world. The sun came up mean the next morning. By 7 o'clock, it was already hot enough to make a man think twice about stepping outside. Tom was up before dawn, checking his rifle, counting his ammunition, making sure everything was in order. Rosie found him on the porch, staring at the empty road.
You think he's coming today?
I think he's coming soon. Tom didn't look at her. Man like Whitmore, he don't like being told no. Makes him crazy. Makes him stupid.
Uncle Garrett ain't stupid. He's mean, but he ain't stupid.
Mean men make mistakes when they get angry enough. That's what I'm counting on. Billy started crying inside. Rosie turned to go, then stopped.
Tom, if something happens to you because of us, I'll never forgive myself.
Tom finally looked at her. This 10-year-old girl, with her burned arm and her bruised face, and her heart that was too big for her small body. Nothing's going to happen to me. And even if it did, that wouldn't be your fault. That would be Garrett Whitmore's fault. You understand the difference? She nodded slowly. Then she went inside to tend to her brother. Tom went back to watching the road. Around mid-morning, a wagon came rattling up the path. Tom's hand went to his gun, but then he recognized the driver, Esperanza Morales, who ran the boarding house in Dusty Springs. Folks called her Essie. She was a handsome woman in her mid-40s, Mexican-American, with silver streaks in her black hair and eyes that had seen plenty of trouble. Her husband had died in an accident at the Dawson Mine 2 years back. She'd been running her boarding house alone ever since. Tom walked out to meet her. Essie, long way from town.
Long way for important news.
She climbed down from the wagon, brushing dust off her skirts.
You got those children inside?
News travels fast.
Everything travels fast when Garrett Whitmore is involved.
Essie's face was grim.
He was in my place last night, buying drinks for some rough-looking men, talking loud, talking about how some rancher was going to learn a lesson about interfering in family business.
Tom's jaw tightened. How many men?
6 that I counted, maybe more.
The kind who don't ask questions about the work they're hired to do. When? Tonight, I think. He was talking about waiting for dark. Essie looked toward the house.
Can I see them? The children?
Tom hesitated, then nodded. He led her inside. Rosie was sitting by the window, feeding Billy small pieces of bread soaked in milk. When she saw Essie, her face lit up.
Mrs. Morales!
Rosie, mija. Essie crossed the room and milked beside her, taking the girl's face in her hands.
Let me look at you. Oh, child, what did he do to you? I'm okay. Tom's been taking care of us.
Essie looked at Tom with new respect in her eyes. Then she looked back at Rosie. Your mama used to come to my boarding house every week for coffee. Did you know that? She was the kindest woman in Dusty Springs. And your papa, he was a good man. A fair man. Paid his workers honest wages, treated everyone decent regardless of where they came from. Her voice hardened. They didn't deserve what happened to them.
You know?
Rosie whispered.
You know what Uncle Garrett did?
I suspect. A lot of folks suspect. But suspecting and proving are different things. Essie stood up. That's why I'm here. To tell Tom what I know, and to offer what help I can. They sat around the small kitchen table while Essie told her story. My husband, Carlos, he worked at the Dawson mine for 3 years. Good worker, careful worker. Never had an accident in his life. Her hands tightened around the cup of water Tom had given her. Then one day, the tunnel he was working in collapsed. Just like that. They said it was bad supports. Said the timber was rotted. But you don't believe that. Carlos inspected those supports himself the day before. Told me they were solid. Said Patrick Dawson ran a safe operation, not like some of the other mines. Essie's eyes were bright with old anger. Then Patrick died. And 2 months later, my Carlos died. And Garrett Whitmore took over everything. Did you tell anyone? Who was I supposed to tell? Sheriff Patterson? She laughed bitterly. He owes Whitmore $3,000. The mayor owes him $5,000. The judge who handles the territorial court, he's got a loan out for his son's medical bills. Whitmore owns that whole town, Mr. McAllister. He owns the paper they write on and the ink they write with. Tom absorbed this. So what do? We find proof, real proof, something that can't be ignored or bought off. Essie leaned forward. There's a doctor in town, Augustus Pemberton. He was the one who treated Margaret Dawson before she died. And Carlos, when they pulled him out of that mine. If anyone knows the truth about what really happened, it's him. Will he talk? I don't know. He's scared. Everyone's scared. Essie looked at Rosie. But maybe, for the sake of these children, he'll find his courage. I'll ride into town tomorrow. Talk to him. You can't, Essie shook her head. Whitmore's got men watching the roads. You show your face in Dusty Springs, they'll shoot you before you get within a mile of the doctor's office. Then what do you suggest? Essie smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I suggest you stay here and protect these children. Let me handle the doctor. I've got ways of moving around that town without being noticed. Benefits of being the woman who cooks breakfast for half the population. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. Mr. McAllister, I need to tell you something. About tonight. Go on. Those men Whitmore hired, they ain't just going to try to take the children. I heard him talking. He said, she swallowed hard. He said he wanted to make an example. Said other folks in the territory needed to know what happens when someone crosses him. Meaning? Meaning he wants you dead. And he wants it to look like an accident. Or maybe like you tried to fight back when they came to legally reclaim his wards. Essie's eyes were dark with worry. He's done it before. To Carlos, to Patrick Dawson. He knows how to make murder look like misfortune. After Essie left, the house felt smaller, quieter. Tom sat cleaning his guns while Rosie played with Billy on the floor, stacking wooden blocks that Tom had carved years ago for a daughter who never got to play with them. Tom? Yeah? What are we going to do? About tonight? Tom finished oiling the barrel of his rifle, slid it home with a satisfying click. We're going to be ready. But there's 6 of them, maybe more, and just 1 of you. I've faced worse odds. Rosie set down the blocks. Her face was serious. Too serious for a child. I don't want you to die for us. Nobody's dying tonight except maybe some of Whitmore's hired guns. You can't promise that. Tom set down the rifle, looked at her straight. You're right. I can't. But I can promise you this. Whatever happens tonight, you and Billy are going to be okay. I got a plan. What kind of plan? Tom walked to the corner of the room, pulled back a worn rug. Underneath was a trap door. Storm cellar. Built it myself when I first came to this land. It goes down 12 feet, stone walls, stone floor. Nothing can get through. And there's a tunnel that comes out about 50 yards east, behind that big rock formation. You know the one? Rosie nodded, her eyes wide. When things start, I want you to take Billy and get in that cellar. Close the door. Don't open it for nobody unless they knock 3 times, then 2 times, then 3 times again. That's the signal. That means it's me and it's safe. What if you don't come? Then you wait till morning. Then you take Billy through that tunnel and you run. East. There's a Comanche settlement about 15 miles that direction. Chief name of Samuel Crowfeather. He knew your grandmother. He'll take you in.
How do you know about my grandmother? Tom paused. He hadn't meant to say that much.
Essie mentioned it. Said your mama's people had Comanche blood. Is that true? Rosie nodded slowly. Mama never talked about it much. Said it wasn't safe to talk about in town. But she taught me some words, some songs. Said her grandmother was a Comanche woman who married a white trader. Tom filed that away. It might be useful later, if things went the way he hoped. That blood might save you, Rosie. Tribal law is different from white man's law. If you can prove your heritage, the Comanche might be able to claim jurisdiction, take you away from Whitmore legally, in a way he can't fight. Is that really true? I don't know for certain, but it's worth trying. Tom replaced the rug over the trap door. Now, let's get you and Billy fed before dark. The afternoon passed slow and tense. Tom fortified what he could, moving furniture to block windows, setting up positions where he could shoot from cover. Rosie helped where she could, her burned arm making her wince every time she lifted something heavy. But she never complained. Billy seemed to sense the tension. He was fussy, crying more than usual, refusing to settle. He knows something's wrong, Rosie said, bouncing him on her hip. Babies always know. He's smart, like his sister. Rosie almost smiled at that. As the sun started to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, Tom made one final check of his weapons. Rifle, shotgun, 2 pistols, knife in his boot. Not enough to fight off a small army, but enough to make them pay dear for every inch. Rosie? She looked up from where she was trying to get Billy to sleep. Whatever happens tonight, I want you to know something. These past 2 days, having you and Billy here, it's been... He struggled for the words. It's been the first time in 4 years I felt like living was worth the trouble. So thank you for that. Rosie's eye filled with tears. Tom, don't talk like that. You're scaring me. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to tell you the truth. Whatever happens, you gave an old, broken-down rancher a reason to fight again. That's a gift. Don't ever forget it. She crossed the room and hugged him, careful of her burned arm, fierce with her one good one. Tom hugged her back, felt something in his chest loosen that had been tight for years. Now get your brother and get in that cellar. They'll be coming soon. Rosie pulled back, wiped her eyes, nodded. 3, 2, 3. That's the signal. That's right. She gathered Billy, who was finally drowsy, and headed for the corner of the room. She pulled back the rug, opened the trap door. Tom? Yeah? Don't die. I'll do my best. She disappeared into the darkness below. The trapdoor closed. Tom replaced the rug, moved a heavy chest over it. Then he took up position by the window and waited. They came just after full dark. Tom heard them before he saw them. Horses moving quiet, trying not to make noise. Men who knew what they were about. He counted the shadows as they approached. 6, maybe 7, spreading out, surrounding the house. One of them dismounted, walked toward the porch. Big man, scar running down his face from eye to chin. He was grinning. "McAllister!" His voice was loud in the quiet night. "We know you're in there, and we know you got those kids. Now we can do this easy, or we can do it hard. Your choice." Tom didn't answer, just sighted down his rifle barrel. "Here's how it's gonna go. You send those children out, we take them back to their legal guardian, and everybody goes home happy." "Well," the scarred man chuckled, "mostly happy. Mr. Whitmore is pretty upset about being embarrassed yesterday. He might want a word with you about that, but at least you'll be alive to hear it." Still nothing from the house. The scarred man's grin faded. "Fine. Hard way it is." He raised his hand. The other men started moving forward. Tom's first shot took the scarred man in the shoulder, spun him around like a top. He went down, screaming. Chaos erupted. The hired guns scattered, looking for cover. One of them wasn't fast enough. Tom's second shot caught him in the leg. He dropped, cursing. "He's in the front window," someone shouted. "Flank him!" Tom was already moving. He'd planned for this. He fired twice more through the window, keeping them pinned, then scrambled to the back of the house. Kicked open the rear door, took aim at the man trying to sneak around from that direction. The man saw him at the last second. His eyes went wide. Tom didn't hesitate. The shot echoed across the empty land. The man dropped. 3 down. 3 or 4 more to go. "Rush him!" someone yelled. "All at once! He can't shoot us all!" They were right about that. Tom retreated into the house, overturning the table for cover. Bullets splintered through the walls. Glass shattered. The whole building shook with the impact. Tom fired. Reloaded. Fired again. A man came through the back door. Tom caught him with the shotgun. The blast threw him back out into the yard. 4 down. But more were coming. Tom could hear them on the porch. Kicking at the door he'd barricaded. He was running out of ammunition. Running out of time. The front door burst open. 2 men came through, guns blazing. Tom dropped behind the overturned table. Felt splinters rain down on his head. Heard bullets whiz past his ears. He popped up, fired twice. 1 man went down. The other dove for cover. But Tom's pistol clicked empty. He reached for his rifle. It was across the room. Too far. The remaining gunman stood up, grinning. His weapon was pointed straight at Tom's chest. "End of the line, old man." Tom looked death in the face, thought about Rosie and Billy in the cellar below. Thought about Caroline and Sarah waiting for him on the other side. Maybe it was time. Then he heard something. Hoofbeats. Lots of them, coming fast. The gunman heard it too. His grin faltered. "What the hell?" Through the shattered window, Tom saw them. Riders pouring over the ridge, torches blazing, coming straight for the ranch. The gunman's face went white. That's the whole damn town!" It was. Tom could see them now. Miguel Santos from the mining crew. Dr. Pemberton on his old mare. Essie Morales driving her wagon like the devil was behind her. And at the front, wearing his badge like it meant something, Sheriff Jake Callahan. The gunman looked at Tom, looked at the riders, made his choice. He ran. Tom slumped back against the wall. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. The riders pulled up in his yard. Jake Callahan dismounted first. Tom, you alive in there?" "Mostly." Tom struggled to his feet. How did you know?" Jake appeared in the doorway. Behind him, men were fanning out, chasing down the hired guns who were trying to flee. "Essie came to me this afternoon, told me what was planned. Jake looked around at the bullet holes, the blood, the destruction. Took me a while to round up enough folks willing to stand against Whitmore, but once word got out what he was planning to do, to a couple of children no less, he shook his head. Even scared folks got limits, Tom. Even folks who owe money got a line they won't cross. Miguel Santos appeared in the doorway, breathing hard. We got 4 of them, 2 dead, 2 wounded. The others scattered into the desert. They won't get far. And Whitmore? Wasn't with them. Miguel's face was grim. He's probably still in town, waiting to hear it was done. Tom pushed himself upright. The children. I need to check on the children.
He stumbled to the corner, shoved the chest aside, pulled back the rug, knocked on the trapdoor. 3 times. 2 times. 3 times. Silence. Then, slowly, the door opened. Rosie's face appeared in the darkness. Her good eye was swollen from crying. Billy was wailing in her arms.
Tom? Is it over?
It's over, sweetheart. You can come out now. She climbed up into the ruined house, saw the bullet holes, the blood, the chaos. Then she saw Tom, standing there alive, and she started crying all over again. She ran to him, hugged him so tight he could barely breathe.
You came back, she sobbed. You knocked the signal, and you came back.
I told you I would.
I thought, when I heard the shooting, I thought...
I know. Tom held her close, Billy squished between them, all 3 of them shaking. I know. But I'm here, and you're here, and we're all gonna be okay. Over Rosie's head, Tom caught Jake Callahan's eye.
What about Whitmore?
I'm heading to town now to arrest him. Attempted murder, conspiracy, hiring men to commit assault. Jake's face was hard. He's done, Tom. Even his money can't buy his way out of this one.
Don't be too sure. Man like that has got tricks we ain't seen yet.
Maybe, but he ain't never faced the whole town standing against him before. Jake tipped his hat. You rest up. I'll send word when he's in custody. The sheriff rode off into the night, taking most of the men with him. A few stayed behind to help clean up the bodies and secure the wounded prisoners. Tom sat on the porch with Rosie, watching the stars come out. Billy was finally asleep, exhausted from all his crying.
Tom?
Yeah?
What happens now?
Now we wait. Wait for the sheriff to arrest Whitmore. Wait for the courts to sort everything out. He looked at her. It's going to take time. Might be messy. But I promise you, one way or another, that man is never going to hurt you again. Rosie leaned against his shoulder.
Can we stay here, me and Billy, while we wait?
Tom felt his heart crack open just a little bit more. You can stay here as long as you want.
Forever?
The word hung in the warm night air. Tom thought about Caroline, about Sarah, about all the years of loneliness and grief. Then he looked at this little girl, this brave, broken, beautiful little girl, who had walked through fire to save her brother. Forever sounds about right, he said. Rosie smiled. For the first time since he'd met her, she smiled like a child was supposed to smile. Free, happy, safe. It was, Tom thought, the most beautiful thing he'd seen in 4 years. But even as they sat there in the quiet aftermath, Tom knew the fight wasn't over. Garrett Whitmore was still out there, still dangerous, still desperate. And desperate men did desperate things. The news came 3 days later, and it wasn't what Tom had hoped for. Sheriff Callahan rode up to the ranch looking 10 years older than he had the night of the attack. His shoulders were slumped, his face drawn tight with frustration. Tom met him on the porch. One look told him everything he needed to know. He got away. Not exactly. Jake climbed down from his horse, slow, like every joint in his body ached. He's still in town, still walking free, But Tom, I can't touch him. What are you talking about? You had witnesses. You had his hired guns in custody. Had being the key word. Jake pulled off his hat, ran a hand through his thinning hair. Every single one of them changed their story. Said they were acting on their own. Said Whitmore never paid them nothing, never told them to do nothing. Said they just heard about some children being held against their will and decided to help out of the goodness of their hearts. Tom felt his blood go cold. He got to them. He got to everyone. Jake's voice was bitter. The 2 wounded men, the ones we had in the jail, their families got visits, their wives, their children. Nobody threatened them directly, of course. Whitmore's too smart for that, but the message was clear. Testify against me, and your family suffers. So that's it? He just walks away? I didn't say that. Jake looked toward the house, where Rosie was watching through the window. There's still the matter of guardianship. Judge Morrison is making his circuit next week. We can present evidence then. Try to get the children placed permanently with you. But Tom, you need to understand something. Whitmore's not done. He's been talking to lawyers in Austin. Important lawyers. He's going to fight this with everything he's got. Let him fight. It ain't that simple. He's got those guardianship papers, signed by a judge back east, all legal and proper. Unless we can prove he murdered those children's parents, unless we can prove he's unfit to raise them, the law says they're his. Tom was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind since Essie first mentioned it. What about Dr. Pemberton? Jake's face shifted. Something like hope flickered in his eyes. That's the one thing that might save us. Essie's been working on him. She says he's close to talking. Really talking. About what he saw when Margaret Dawson died. About what he found when they pulled Carlos Morales out of that collapsed tunnel. Then let's go get him. Right now. Can't. Whitmore's got men watching the doctor's house. Watching mine too, probably. If I'm seen anywhere near Pemberton, Whitmore will know we're building a case. He'll either buy the doctor off or... Jake didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. So what do? We wait. Essie's got a plan. She's going to bring Pemberton here, to your ranch, in 3 days. Pretend she's making a delivery. Hide him in her wagon. Once he's here, away from Whitmore's eyes, he can tell us everything. Write it down. Sign it. And if Whitmore finds out? Then we'd better pray Pemberton talks fast. After Jake left, Tom went inside. Rosie was sitting at the table, feeding Billy mashed sweet potato. She didn't look up when Tom entered. I heard, she said quietly. The window was open. Tom sat down across from her. No point in lying. Your uncle's got powerful friends. This is going to take longer than I thought. He's going to win, isn't he? Rosie's voice was flat, defeated. He always wins. He won against Mama. He won against Daddy. He'll win against us, too. Hey! Tom reached across the table, tilted her chin up so she had to look at him. Don't you talk like that. Your Mama and Daddy didn't have what you've got. What's that? Me. Tom said it simple, like he was stating the weather. And Essie. And the sheriff. And every person in this territory who's sick of watching Garrett Whitmore get away with murder. Your parents fought alone, Rosie. You're not alone. A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it away quick, like she was embarrassed. I'm tired of being scared, Tom. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder every minute, wondering if today's the day he catches us. I know. Sometimes I think it would be easier to just give up. Let him send us east. At least then it would be over. Tom felt something twist in his chest. He got up, walked around the table, knelt down so he was eye level with her. Listen to me. I know it feels like this is never going to end. I know it feels like Whitmore's got all the power and we've got nothing. But I've seen men like him before. Powerful men. Men who thought they were untouchable. You know what happens to men like that? Rosie shook her head. They get careless. They get arrogant. They start believing their own lies so much that they can't see the truth coming until it hits them square in the face. Tom took her hand, the one that wasn't burned. Your uncle made a mistake when he hurt you. He made a bigger mistake when he let you get away. And he made the biggest mistake of all, when he underestimated what a 10-year-old girl could do to bring him down. What do you mean? I mean, you're the witness, Rosie. You saw him at the mine the night before your daddy died. You watched him bring your mama medicine that made her sicker instead of better. You felt him hold your arm to that stove. Tom squeezed her hand. Your testimony matters. Your truth matters. And when the time comes, you're going to stand up in front of that judge and you're going to tell the whole world exactly what kind of man Garrett Whitmore really is. What if they don't believe me? I'm just a kid. Then we'll make them believe. With Dr. Pemberton's testimony, with evidence, with the truth. Tom stood up. The truth is like water, Rosie. You can dam it up for a while, but eventually it finds a way through. And when it does, it washes away everything that tried to stop it. Rosie looked at him for a long moment. Then slowly, she nodded. Okay, I'll do it. I'll tell them everything. That's my girl. The next 3 days passed slow and tense. Tom kept watch, rifle always within reach. Rosie helped around the ranch, doing small chores that didn't strain her burned arm. Billy was growing stronger every day, laughing and babbling and trying to pull himself up on the furniture. On the third morning, Essie's wagon came up the road. Tom was on the porch before she'd even stopped. He could see right away that something was wrong. Essie's face was pale, her hands shaking on the reins. What happened? Essie climbed down. Her legs were unsteady. Pemberton's dead. The words hit Tom like a physical blow. What? They found him this morning, in his office. They're calling it a heart attack, but Tom... Essie's voice broke. I talked to him last night. He was scared, but he was healthy, strong. He was ready to come here today, ready to tell everything. Whitmore. Had to be. One of his men, anyway. Made it look natural. Essie wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm sorry, Tom. I'm so sorry. I thought I was being careful. I thought nobody knew. Tom stood there, feeling the hope drain out of him. Pemberton was their best chance, their only real evidence besides Rosie's word. And now he was gone. Is there anybody else? Anybody who knows what Pemberton knew? Essie shook her head. He was the only doctor in town, the only one who examined Margaret before she died, the only one who... She stopped. Her eyes went wide. Wait. What? His records. Pemberton kept records of every patient he ever treated. Detailed records. Dates, symptoms, treatments.
If Margaret was being poisoned, if Carlos's death wasn't an accident, it would be in those records. Where are they? In his office. But Tom, Whitmore will be looking for them too, if he hasn't found them already. Tom grabbed his hat, his gun belt. Then I better get there first. You can't go to town. His men will kill you on sight. Then I'll go at night. Slip in, get the records, slip out. That's suicide. Maybe. Tom looked back at the house, where Rosie was standing in the doorway, holding Billy. But without those records, we've got nothing. And I made a promise. Rosie stepped onto the porch. Her face was determined. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. I know that town better than you do.
I know the back alleys, the shortcuts. I know which floorboards creak in Dr. Pemberton's office, because Mama used to take me there when I was little.
Rosie lifted her chin. You need me. I need you alive and safe.
I'll never be safe as long as Uncle Garrett is free. You said it yourself. The only way this ends is if we bring him down. Let me help.
Tom looked at Essie. She shrugged. She's right, about knowing the town. And Whitmore won't be expecting her. He'll be watching for you, not a little girl. Tom looked at Rosie, saw the fire in her one good eye. The same fire he'd seen when she walked out of that desert carrying her brother. Fine. But you do exactly what I say. No arguments. No heroics. You understand? Rosie nodded solemnly. Yes, sir. They left after dark. Essie stayed at the ranch with Billy, promising to ride for the sheriff if they weren't back by dawn. The moon was just a sliver, barely enough light to see the road. Tom and Rosie moved quiet, keeping off the main trails, cutting across open land where no one would think to look. Dusty Springs lay quiet when they reached it. Most of the buildings were dark, their residents asleep. But Tom could see light burning in the window of the bank. Whitmore's bank. He's still awake, Rosie whispered. Good. Means he's not out looking for trouble. They circled around to the back of town, moving through shadows, avoiding the few people still on the streets. Pemberton's office was a small building near the edge of town, next to the church. Rosie led the way. She knew every loose board, every squeaky step. They slipped through a back window that she remembered being easy to Jimmy and found themselves in the doctor's examination room. The place had been ransacked, papers everywhere, cabinets thrown open. Somebody had been here before them. Tom's heart sank. They got the records. Maybe not. Rosie was moving through the chaos, her small fingers searching. Dr. Pemberton was smart. He knew Uncle Garrett might come looking one day. He told me once, when Mama was sick, that he kept the most important things where nobody would think to look. Where? Rosie stopped in front of a large cabinet. It was built into the wall, looked like it had been there for decades. She reached up, ran her fingers along the top edge. Help me, she said. There's a panel here. I can feel it, but I can't reach. Tom lifted her up. Her small hands found what they were looking for. A click. A portion of the cabinet swung open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside were stacks of papers, journals, notebooks filled with careful handwriting. This is it, Rosie breathed. This is everything. Tom grabbed the papers, stuffed them into the bag he'd brought. They had what they came for. Now they just had to get out. They were almost to the window when the front door burst open. I knew it! Garrett Whitmore stood in the doorway. Behind him were 3 men with guns drawn. Tom pushed Rosie behind him, his hand going to his pistol. Don't. Garrett's voice was calm, almost amused. You're fast, McAllister. I've heard the story, but you're not fast enough to take 3 men before one of them puts a bullet in that little girl. Tom's hand froze. Smart man. Garrett stepped into the room. He was dressed in his usual city suit, but there were dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. I wondered who would come sniffing around here. I should have known it would be you. It's over, Whitmore. The sheriff knows everything. The whole town knows. The whole town knows what I tell them to know. Garrett's smile was thin and cruel. You think a few papers are going to change that? You think anybody's going to believe the ravings of a dead doctor and the lies of a traumatized child? They'll believe the truth. The truth, Garrett laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. The truth is whatever people with power say it is. That's the first lesson of civilization, McAllister. The second lesson is that power comes from money, and I have more money than God. He gestured to his men. Take the bag. One of the hired guns stepped forward. Tom's muscles tensed. If he was going to make a move, it had to be now. But before he could act, a voice rang out from behind Garrett. "Garrett Whitmore, you're under arrest." Sheriff Callahan stood in the street, his gun aimed at Garrett's back. Behind him were at least a dozen townspeople, all armed. "What is this?" Garrett's face twisted with rage. "This is what happens when you push people too far." Jake's voice was steady. "When you kill the doctor everybody trusted. When you send men to burn a rancher's home. When you threaten children." He shook his head. "Even scared folks have limits, Whitmore. You found theirs. You can't arrest me. I have rights. I have lawyers. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." Garrett's men looked at each other, looked at the armed crowd. Their guns lowered, one by one. It was over. Tom felt Rosie's hand slip into his. He squeezed it tight.
"We did it,"
she whispered. "Not yet, but we're close." They watched as Sheriff Callahan led Garrett Whitmore away in chains. The banker was screaming about lawsuits, about connections, about how everybody involved would pay. Nobody was listening anymore. Essie appeared at Tom's elbow. He hadn't even seen her arrive.
"I thought you were staying with Billy."
"I was. Then I heard Whitmore left the bank in a hurry, heading this direction. Figured you might need backup." She looked at the bag in Tom's hand.
"Did you get them? The records?"
Tom nodded.
"Then it's really over?"
Tom looked at Rosie, at her burned arm, her bruised face, her one good eye shining with tears. "Almost," he said. "There's still one more thing we need to do."
"What's that?"
"Make sure this never happens again. To anyone." The next morning, Tom sat down with Rosie and they went through Dr. Pemberton's records together. What they found was worse than either of them had imagined. Margaret Dawson hadn't died from complications of childbirth. She'd been slowly poisoned over weeks. The doctor had documented every symptom, every suspicion. He'd even identified the likely substance, arsenic, administered in small doses through the medicine Garrett brought her every day. And Carlos Morales, Essie's husband, he hadn't died in a simple mine collapse. The support beams had been cut, partially sawed through so they'd hold for a while, then give way without warning. Pemberton had found wood shavings on Carlos's clothes that didn't match any of the timber in the mine.
"He killed them all,"
Rosie said quietly.
"Mama, Mr. Morales, Daddy, he killed them all for money."
"And now he's going to pay for it."
"Will he hang?"
Tom looked at this little girl who'd been through more than most adults ever faced, who'd lost everything and kept fighting, who'd walked through fire, literally, and come out the other side. "Yes," he said. "He'll hang." Rosie nodded slowly. Then she did something Tom didn't expect. She closed the records, set them aside, and looked up at him with clear eyes.
"Can we go home now? Billy probably misses us."
Tom felt something warm bloom in his chest. Home. She'd called his ranch home. "Yeah," he said, his voice rough. "Let's go home." The trial of Garrett Whitmore was set for the following week. Judge Morrison arrived in Dusty Springs on a Tuesday afternoon, riding in a stagecoach that had seen better days. He was a lean man in his 60s, with sharp eyes and a reputation for fairness that had survived 30 years on the frontier. Tom was in town when the judge arrived. He'd come to meet with Sheriff Callahan to go over the evidence one more time. But when he saw Morrison step off that stagecoach, he felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. Hope.
"That's him?"
Rosie asked. She'd insisted on coming, leaving Billy with Essie at the ranch. "That's him."
He looks old.
Old don't mean weak. That man sent more outlaws to the gallows than any other judge in Texas. Tom put his hand on her shoulder. He's the best chance we've got. They watched as the judge was greeted by the mayor and led toward the hotel. Whitmore's lawyers had already arrived, 3 of them, in suits that cost more than most folks in Dusty Springs made in a year. They stood on the porch of the bank, watching the proceedings with cold eyes. "They look confident," Rosie said quietly. "Let them. Confidence don't mean nothing when you're facing the truth." But even as Tom said it, he felt a knot of worry in his gut. Whitmore's lawyers were from Austin. Big city lawyers with big city tricks. The evidence they had was strong, but evidence could be twisted. Witnesses could be intimidated. And Rosie, for all her bravery, was still just a child. A child who would have to stand up in front of a courtroom full of adults and accuse her own uncle of murder. That night, Tom found Rosie sitting on the porch of their room at the boarding house. She was staring at the stars, her knees pulled up to her chest. "Can't sleep?" She shook her head. Tom sat down beside her. The night was warm, the kind of Texas summer night that felt like being wrapped in a blanket you couldn't take off. "Scared about tomorrow?" "A little." She was quiet for a moment. "Tom, what if I mess up? What if I get in there and I can't remember things right? What if I start crying and everybody thinks I'm just making it up?" "Then you'll take a breath and try again. Nobody expects you to be perfect, Rosie. They just expect you to tell the truth." "But what if the truth isn't enough?" Tom thought about that. Thought about all the times in his life when the truth hadn't been enough. When bad men walked free because they had money or power or connections. When good people suffered because justice was blind in all the wrong ways. "You remember what I told you about water?" Rosie nodded. "It finds a way through." "That's right. And sometimes it takes longer than we want. Sometimes it has to go around obstacles, find new paths, wear down stone inch by inch over years and years. But it never stops. It never gives up." He looked at her. "You're like that water, Rosie. You've been finding your way through since the day your daddy died. Through grief, through pain, through that desert with your brother in your arms. Whatever happens in that courtroom tomorrow, you're going to keep finding your way. I believe that." Rosie leaned against his shoulder. "I wish Mama and Daddy could see me." "They can. I'm sure of it." "Do you think they'd be proud?" Tom felt his throat tighten. "I think they'd be the proudest parents in all of heaven." They sat there in silence for a while, watching the stars wheel overhead. Then Rosie spoke again, her voice small. "Tom, after all this is over, after Uncle Garrett goes to jail or whatever happens, what's going to happen to me and Billy?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, where will we go? Who will take care of us?" She looked up at him, her one good eye glistening. "I know you've been kind to us. I know you saved our lives. But that don't mean you have to keep us forever. We're not your responsibility. We're not your family." Tom felt something break open in his chest. Something that had been locked away since Caroline and Sarah died. "Rosie, I need to tell you something. And I need you to listen real careful." She nodded, her face solemn. "When I found you in that desert, when I saw you carrying Billy through the heat, ready to die so he could live, something happened to me. Something I didn't expect." He swallowed hard. "For 4 years, I'd been dead inside, going through the motions of living, but not really alive. I'd convinced myself that caring about anyone ever again was too dangerous, that if I kept everyone at arm's length, I couldn't get hurt. And then we showed up. And then you showed up." Tom smiled, but his eyes were wet. "And you reminded me of something I'd forgotten. that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about who you're willing to fight for, who you're willing to die for, who you want to see first thing in the morning and last thing at night. Rosie was crying now, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. I can't replace your parents, Rosie. I wouldn't try. But if you'll have me, I'd like to be your family. You and Billy both. Not because I have to, because I want to. Because these past few weeks, having you in my house, it's felt more like home than any place has since Caroline died. Do you mean it? I've never meant anything more in my life. Rosie threw her arms around him, sobbing into his chest. Tom held her tight, feeling her small body shake with emotion. I want to stay, she whispered.
I want to stay with you forever.
Then that's what we'll do. After this trial, after Whitmore's put away, we'll make it official. I'll adopt you and Billy, legal and proper. You'll be Dawson's still if you want, but you'll be mine too.
I'd like that.
Rosie pulled back, wiping her eyes.
I'd like that a lot.
They went to bed after that, but Tom lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that could go wrong tomorrow, and everything that could go right. The courtroom was packed by the time they arrived. Every seat was full, and people were standing 3 deep along the walls. Word had spread across the territory about the trial, about the orphan children, the murdered parents, the banker who thought his money made him untouchable. Tom led Rosie to the front of the room, where Sheriff Callahan had reserved seats for them. Billy was with Essie in the back, too young to understand what was happening, but content as long as he was fed and held. Garrett Whitmore sat at the defendant's table, flanked by his 3 lawyers. He was dressed in his finest suit, his hair slicked back, his face arranged in an expression of wounded innocence. When he saw Rosie, something flickered in his eyes, something dark and hateful. Rosie's hand tightened on Tom's arm, but she didn't look away. Judge Morrison took his seat at the bench. He looked out over the crowded courtroom with an expression that said he'd seen it all before and wasn't impressed. This court is now in session. We're here to determine whether Garrett Whitmore should be bound over for trial on charges of murder in the first degree, 3 counts. Additionally, we will hear arguments regarding the custody of minors Rosalie and William Dawson. He looked at the lawyers. Prosecution, you may proceed. The territorial prosecutor was a young man named Daniel Carver. He was nervous, clearly out of his depth against Whitmore's expensive legal team, but he'd been working with Sheriff Callahan for days, and he knew the evidence cold. He laid it all out. Dr. Pemberton's records documenting Margaret Dawson's poisoning. The testimony of miners who'd seen Garrett near the equipment shed the night before Patrick Dawson died. The wood shavings found on Carlos Morales' body that matched saw cuts, not natural breakage. The pattern of Garrett's behavior, inheriting money and property every time someone died. Whitmore's lawyers objected constantly. They questioned the authenticity of the records. They attacked the credibility of the witnesses. They suggested that Dr. Pemberton had been senile, that the miners were disgruntled employees seeking revenge, that the whole case was a fabrication by people jealous of Garrett's success. But Judge Morrison let the evidence stand, and when it came time for Rosie to testify, he called a brief recess. "You sure you're ready for this?" Tom asked her in the hallway. Rosie's face was pale, but her jaw was set. I have to be. For Mama, for Daddy, for Billy. She looked up at him. Will you be there? In the front row? Wild horses couldn't drag me away. When the court reconvened, Rosie walked to the witness stand alone. She looked impossibly small in that big chair, her feet not quite touching the floor. But her voice was steady when she took the oath. Prosecutor Carver approached her gently. Rosalie, Can you tell the court what you saw on the night of March 14th of this year? The night before your father died? Rosie took a deep breath.
I couldn't sleep. I was worried about Daddy because he'd been arguing with Uncle Garrett about the mine. About money.
Her voice was quiet but clear.
I went to the window and I saw Uncle Garrett walking toward the equipment shed. It was late, real late. I watched him go inside. He was in there a long time, maybe an hour.
Then he came out and went back to the main house. Did you tell anyone what you saw?
Not at first. I didn't know it meant anything. But then the next day, Daddy went to the mine and the tunnel collapsed.
Her voice cracked slightly.
After that, I was too scared to say anything. Uncle Garrett said he was our guardian now. He said we had to do what he told us.
And what did he tell you?
He told me to forget what I saw. He said nobody would believe a little girl anyway. He said if I ever told anyone, something bad would happen to Billy.
The courtroom was silent. Even Whitmore's lawyers had stopped shuffling papers. Rosalie, can you tell the court about your arm? About the burns? Rosie held up her right arm, still wrapped in bandages.
Uncle Garrett wanted me to sign papers. Papers that would give him control of Daddy's mine. I said no. I said it belonged to me and Billy.
She paused.
He got real angry. He grabbed my arm and he put it on the stove.
He held it there while I screamed. He said he'd do the same to Billy if I didn't sign. Did you sign? No, sir. I ran. I took Billy and I ran into the desert. I'd rather die out there than let him hurt my brother. One of Whitmore's lawyers stood up. Your Honor, this is all very dramatic, but it's the uncorroborated testimony of a traumatized child who has been coached by adults with their own agenda. Judge Morrison's eyes were hard. The witness has provided testimony consistent with physical evidence and multiple corroborating accounts. You'll have your chance to cross-examine. He looked at Rosie. Please continue.
There's more, Rosie said quietly. About Mama.
The courtroom went even more silent.
Uncle Garrett used to bring Mama medicine every day. He said the doctor gave it to him, but Mama kept getting sicker instead of better. One time, I saw him pouring something into the bottle. Something from a little jar he kept in his pocket.
I asked him what it was, and he said it was just extra vitamins. But after that, I started watching. Every time he gave Mama that medicine, she got worse. And when he forgot to come one day, she actually felt better. She looked directly at Garrett for the first time.
You killed my Mama. You killed my Daddy. And you were going to kill me and Billy too, just to get our money.
Garrett's face twisted with rage. Lies, he shouted, standing up so fast his chair fell over. These are all lies. That child is a liar and a thief, and she's been turned against me by people who want what's mine. Sit down, Mr. Whitmore, Judge Morrison said coldly. I will not sit down. I have rights. I'm a respected businessman. I won't be slandered by some half-breed mongrel who belongs in an orphanage. The word hung in the air like poison. Half-breed mongrel. The whole courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Tom's hands clenched into fists. Beside him, Essie whispered something in Spanish that sounded like a prayer or a curse. But it was Rosie who responded.
My Mama was part Comanche, she said,
her voice clear and proud.
Her grandmother was a Comanche woman named Laughing Wind, who married a white trader. That's my heritage. That's who I am. And I'm not ashamed of it.
Something shifted in the courtroom. Tom felt it, saw it in the faces of the townspeople. Garrett had made a mistake. A big one. Calling a grieving child a slur in front of a judge and 100 witnesses after she'd just testified about watching her parents die. Even his expensive lawyers looked sick. Judge Morrison's face was like stone. Mr. Whitmore, You will sit down and you will remain silent for the duration of these proceedings. One more outburst and I will hold you in contempt." Garrett sat, but his face was red with fury. He knew he'd made an error. You could see it in his eyes. The cross-examination was brutal. Whitmore's lawyers tried every trick, every insinuation, every attack. They suggested Rosie was confused. They suggested she'd been bribed. They suggested her injuries were self-inflicted, that she'd burned her own arm to frame her uncle. But Rosie didn't break. Every question they threw at her, she answered calmly and clearly. When they tried to confuse her with complicated legal language, she asked them to explain. When they implied she was lying, she simply repeated what she'd seen. By the time they were done, even the lawyers looked defeated. Judge Morrison called for a recess. The courtroom emptied slowly, people murmuring to each other about what they'd witnessed. Tom found Rosie in the hallway, surrounded by townspeople who wanted to shake her hand, tell her she was brave, apologize for not seeing the truth sooner. She accepted it all with grace beyond her years. When they were finally alone, Tom knelt down in front of her. "You did good, sweetheart. Real good."
"I was so scared," she admitted. "The whole time my heart was beating so fast I thought it might burst."
"But you did it anyway. That's what courage is. Being scared and doing the right thing anyway."
"Do you think it was enough to convince the judge?"
"I think so, but we'll know for sure soon." The recess lasted an hour. When the courtroom reconvened, the crowd was even larger than before. Word had spread about Garrett's outburst, about Rosie's testimony, about the possibility that justice might actually be served. Judge Morrison took his seat. His face was unreadable. "After reviewing all testimony and evidence presented, I am prepared to make my ruling." He looked at Garrett. "Garrett Whitmore, you are hereby bound over for trial on 3 counts of murder in the first degree. You will remain in custody until said trial can be convened. Bail is denied." A murmur ran through the crowd. Garrett's lawyers began objecting, but the judge cut them off. "Additionally, regarding the custody of Rosalie and William Dawson, I am terminating the guardianship of Garrett Whitmore immediately. The children will be placed in temporary custody of Thomas McAllister, pending formal adoption proceedings." Rosie grabbed Tom's hand so hard it hurt. "However," the judge continued, and Tom's heart skipped, "there is another matter to consider. Miss Rosalie has testified that her mother was of partial Comanche descent. If this can be verified, the children may be eligible for tribal enrollment, which would provide additional protections under federal treaty law." He looked at Tom. "Mr. McAllister, I understand you've had contact with Chief Samuel Crowfeather of the Comanche Nation?" Tom stood, surprised. "Yes, Your Honor. He knew Rosalie's grandmother. He's expressed willingness to recognize the children's heritage." "Then I will delay final custody determination for 30 days to allow for tribal verification. If the Comanche Nation chooses to recognize these children, their adoption will proceed under both territorial and tribal law, providing the strongest possible legal protection against any future claims." The gavel came down. "Court is adjourned." Chaos erupted. People were cheering, crying, rushing forward to congratulate Tom and Rosie. Garrett Whitmore was being led away in chains, still shouting threats and promises of revenge that nobody was listening to anymore. In the middle of it all, Tom found Rosie.
"We won," she breathed. "We actually won."
"Not yet," Tom said, "but we're close. Real close." Essie appeared with Billy in her arms. The baby was laughing, caught up in the excitement, even though he couldn't understand it. Rosie took him, hugged him tight. "You hear that, Billy? We're going to be okay. We're going to have a real home, a real family." Tom put his arm around both of them. "Come on," he said. "Let's get out of here." We've got a long ride ahead, and there's someone we need to see. Chief Crowfeather? That's right. Tom looked out at the crowd, at the people who had finally found their courage to stand against injustice. It's time to make sure this family is official, in every way that matters. They rode out to the Comanche settlement the next morning. Tom, Rosie, Billy, and Essie, who'd insisted on coming along as a witness. The journey took most of the day, following trails that wound through canyons and across open prairie that seemed to stretch forever. Rosie was quiet for most of the ride. She held Billy in front of her on the saddle, one arm wrapped tight around his middle, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "You nervous?" Tom asked. "A little. I never met any Comanche before. Mama used to tell me stories about her grandmother, but she never took me to meet anyone from the tribe." "Why not?" "She said it wasn't safe. Said people in town wouldn't understand." Rosie's voice got quiet.
Uncle Garrett used to say terrible things about Indians. Said they were savages. Said Mama should be ashamed of her blood.
"Your mama had nothing to be ashamed of, and neither do you."
I know that now.
Rosie looked at him.
Tom, what if they don't accept us? What if they say we're not Comanche enough?
Then we'll go home and figure something else out. But I don't think that's going to happen. Chief Crowfeather knew your great-grandmother. He remembers her. That means something to his people. They reached the settlement in late afternoon. It was smaller than Tom had expected, maybe 30 lodges arranged in a loose circle near a creek. Children were playing in the water, women were working over cook fires, and men were tending to horses in a corral nearby. As they approached, a group of warriors rode out to meet them. Tom raised his hand in greeting, showing he meant no harm. "I'm looking for Chief Samuel Crowfeather," he called out. "I'm Tom McAllister. I sent word we were coming." One of the warriors studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Follow." They were led into the settlement, past curious faces and whispered conversations. Tom could feel eyes on them from every direction. Not hostile exactly, but watchful, careful. Chief Crowfeather was waiting for them near the largest lodge. He was an older man, maybe 60, with silver hair braided down his back and eyes that seemed to see right through you. When he spotted Rosie, something shifted in his expression, something soft and sad. "You look like her," he said, walking toward them. "Like Laughing Wind." She had that same fire in her eyes. Rosie slid down from the horse, Billy still in her arms.
"You knew my great-grandmother?"
"I knew her well. She was my mother's closest friend. When she left to marry the white trader, my mother wept for a week." The chief knelt down so he was eye level with Rosie. "You are her great-granddaughter. I can see her spirit in you."
Is that enough? To be part of the tribe?
Chief Crowfeather smiled. "Blood is only part of what makes someone Comanche. The rest is heart, spirit, the willingness to stand for your people, to sacrifice for those you love." He looked at her burned arm, still wrapped in bandages. "You have already proven you have the heart of a warrior, little one. You walked through fire to save your brother. That is the Comanche way." Tom stepped forward. "Chief, I came here to ask for your help. The territorial judge said that if the tribe recognizes these children, they'll be protected under federal treaty law. No one will be able to take them away again. You want us to claim them as our own. I want you to give them the protection they deserve, the protection their mother should have been able to give them." Chief Crowfeather stood, his old knees creaking. "There is a process, a ceremony. The children must be formally recognized by the Council of Elders. They must answer questions about their heritage, their intentions, their commitment to our ways." "What kind of questions?" "Questions that will reveal what is in their hearts." The chief looked at Tom with measuring eyes. "And you, Thomas McAllister, you wish to adopt these children?" "More than anything." Then you will answer questions too. Our people do not give our children to just anyone. If you want to be their father, you must prove yourself worthy. Tom felt his stomach tighten. What do I have to prove? That is for the council to decide. Chief Crowfeather gestured toward a large lodge at the center of the settlement. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, when the sun rises, the trial will begin. They were given a lodge to sleep in, with blankets and food and water. Billy was fascinated by everything, reaching for the decorations hanging from the poles, babbling at the strange new world around him. Rosie was quieter, lost in thought.
Tom? Yeah? What if they ask me questions I don't know the answer to? About Comanche history, or language, or traditions? Mama taught me some things, but not everything.
Then you tell them the truth, that you want to learn, that you're proud of your heritage even if you don't know everything about it yet. Tom sat down beside her. Nobody expects you to be perfect, Rosie. They just want to know you're sincere.
What about you? What if they decide you're not good enough to be our father?
The question hit Tom harder than he expected. Then I'll keep trying until they change their minds. I didn't come this far to give up now. Rosie leaned against his shoulder.
I'm glad you're my family, Tom, even if it's not official yet.
Me too, sweetheart. Me too. The trial began at dawn. The council of elders gathered in the central lodge, 7 men and women whose ages ranged from middle-aged to ancient. Chief Crowfeather sat at the head, his face impassive. Tom, Rosie, and Billy were brought before them, with Essie watching from the back. We are here to consider a request, the chief began. These children claim descent from Laughing Wind, daughter of our tribe, who left us many seasons ago. They ask to be recognized as Comanche, to carry our protection, to be part of our people. An elderly woman leaned forward. The girl, come closer. Rosie stepped forward, her chin held high despite her trembling hands. You are the great-granddaughter of Laughing Wind?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know her story? Why she left our people? Rosie hesitated.
Mama said she fell in love with a white trader. Said she chose love over everything else. And do you think she was right to do so?
Rosie thought about it carefully.
I think she was brave. It must have been hard, leaving everything she knew. But she followed her heart, and because of that, I'm here. My mama was here. My brother is here.
She looked at the old woman. I don't know if it was right or wrong, but I'm grateful she made that choice. The elders exchanged glances. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication. Another elder spoke, a man with deep scars on his face. You have suffered, child. We can see it in your eyes, in the marks on your body. Tell us about your suffering. Rosie's voice was steady. My uncle killed my parents. He wanted their money, their land. He hurt me because I wouldn't give him what he wanted. He was going to send me and my brother away, to die where no one would ever find us. She held up her burned arm. This is what he did when I refused to sign papers giving him everything my parents left us. And yet you survived. I ran. I took Billy and I walked into the desert. I would have died out there, but Tom found us. He saved us. He's been protecting us ever since. The scarred elder looked at Tom. You are not of our blood. Why do you want these children? Tom stood tall. Because they need me. Because I need them. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I had a family once, a wife and daughter. They died while I was away, and I blamed myself for years. I shut myself off from everyone, convinced myself that caring about anyone again was too dangerous. And then Rosie came walking out of the desert, carrying her baby brother, ready to die so he could live. And I saw something in her that reminded me of everything I used to believe in. Courage, love, the willingness to sacrifice everything for family. Tom's voice cracked slightly. She didn't just need saving. She saved me. Gave me a reason to live again, to fight again. To believe that family isn't about blood, it's about choice. About who you're willing to stand for when the world turns against you. The lodge was silent. Chief Crowfeather spoke. There is one more question, the hardest one. He looked at Tom with ancient eyes.
If we do not recognize these children, if we send you away empty-handed, what will you do? I'll take them home, keep fighting, find another way to protect them. And if there is no other way? If the white man's law takes them from you? Tom felt cold at the thought. Then I'll follow them, wherever they go, whatever happens. I'll never stop looking out for them, never stop loving them. He looked at Rosie, at Billy sleeping peaceful in Essie's arms. They're my family, official or not, recognized or not. Nothing changes that. Chief Crowfeather stood. The council will deliberate. Wait outside. Tom, Rosie, Essie, and Billy were led out of the lodge. They sat in the shade of a cottonwood tree, not speaking, barely breathing. The minutes stretched into an hour, then 2. "What's taking so long?" Rosie whispered. "They're making sure they get it right." Tom tried to sound confident, but his heart was pounding. Finally, the lodge flap opened. A young warrior appeared. "The council has decided. You may enter." They walked back into the lodge. The elders were still seated, their faces unreadable. Chief Crowfeather stood at the center. "We have heard your words. We have looked into your hearts." He paused. "Rosalie Dawson, you carry the blood of WestWhen, daughter of our people. You have shown the courage of a warrior, the love of a mother, the spirit of the Comanche." Rosie held her breath. "From this day forward, you and your brother William are recognized as members of our tribe. You will carry our protection. You will be part of our people. The name of WestWhen will live on in you." Tears spilled down Rosie's cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." But the chief wasn't finished. "Thomas McAllister," he turned to Tom, "you are not of our blood, but you have proven yourself a man of honor. You risked your life for children who were not your own. You stood against powerful enemies. You opened your heart when it would have been easier to keep it closed." Tom felt his throat tighten. In our tradition, family is not only blood. It is choice. It is commitment. It is the willingness to sacrifice for those you love. Chief Crowfeather walked toward him. "You have earned the right to be father to these children, not by our law, but by our respect. We give you our blessing." Tom bowed his head, overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say." "Say nothing. Words are wind. Actions are what matter." The chief placed his hand on Tom's shoulder. "Go home. Raise your children. Teach them to be strong and kind and brave. That is how you honor us." They left the settlement that afternoon, their hearts full. Rosie couldn't stop smiling, kept looking at the beaded bracelet the elders had given her as a symbol of her heritage. Billy had been given a small leather pouch containing a stone from the sacred river to protect him on his journey through life. The ride home felt shorter than the ride out. Or maybe it just seemed that way because they weren't carrying so much fear. "Tom," Rosie said as they crested the final ridge and saw his ranch spread out below them. "Yeah?" "When we get home, can we put up something for Mama and Daddy? Like a marker or something? So they'll always be part of our new family too?" Tom felt his heart swell.
I think that's a fine idea. We'll put it right next to where Caroline and Sarah are buried. That way, all our people will be together."
Our people,
Rosie repeated softly.
I like that.
2 weeks later, Judge Morrison returned to Dusty Springs for the final custody hearing. The courtroom was full again, but this time the mood was different. Lighter. Hopeful. Garrett Whitmore was in jail awaiting trial for murder. His lawyers had abandoned him, and his bank was being audited by territorial authorities. Everything he'd built on lies and blood was crumbling around him. Tom stood before the judge with Rosie on one side and Billy in his arms. "Mr. McAllister," Judge Morrison said, "I have reviewed the documentation from the Comanche Nation recognizing Rosalie and William Dawson as tribal members. I have also reviewed your petition for formal adoption. Do you understand the responsibilities you are taking on?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Do you swear to provide for these children, protect them, raise them to be honest and upright citizens?" "I do." "Do you swear to love them as your own, in good times and bad, in sickness and health, for as long as you live?" Tom looked at Rosie, at Billy, at the family he never expected to have again. "I do." Judge Morrison smiled, the first genuine smile Tom had seen from him. "Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Texas, I hereby declare Thomas McAllister the legal father of Rosalie and William Dawson. The adoption is final. Congratulations." The gavel came down. Rosie threw herself into Tom's arms. Billy squealed with delight, not understanding what had happened, but knowing it was good. Essie was crying in the back row. Miguel Santos was cheering. The whole courtroom erupted in applause. Tom held his children close, feeling tears on his own cheeks for the first time in years.
"We did it,"
Rosie sobbed.
"We're really a family."
"We always were, sweetheart. Now it's just official." That evening, they held a celebration at the ranch. Essie brought food. Miguel brought musicians. Half the town showed up. People who had stood with them, fought with them, believed in them when believing was hard. As the sun went down, Tom found himself standing on the porch, watching Rosie dance with some of the other children, while Billy sat in Essie's lap, clapping his tiny hands. Sheriff Callahan walked up beside him. "Hell of a thing," Jake said, taking a sip from his cup. "What's that?" "All of it. Few weeks ago you were a broken-down rancher living alone, talking to nobody. Now look at you, father of two, hero of the town, the man who brought down Garrett Whitmore." "I didn't do it alone." "No, you didn't." Jake looked at Rosie. "That girl's something special. Walking through the desert to save her brother, standing up in court against her own uncle. Not many grown men have that kind of courage. She's the bravest person I know. Takes brave to recognize brave." Jake finished his drink. "You're going to be a good father, Tom. Those kids are lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one." Later that night, after the guests had gone home and the ranch was quiet, Tom tucked Rosie and Billy into bed. The room that used to be his storage room, that used to be his daughter Sarah's room, was now decorated with Rosie's drawings and Billy's toys, and the beaded bracelet from the Comanche elders hanging on the wall. "Tom?" Rosie's voice was sleepy. "Yeah?" "Do you think Mama and Daddy can see us? Where they are?" Tom sat on the edge of the bed. "I think they can. I think they've been watching over you this whole time, guiding you to me." "I like to think that too," she yawned. "And Carolyn and Sarah, do you think they're happy? That you have us now?" Tom felt that familiar ache in his chest. But it was different now. Softer. More like memory than pain. "I think they are. I think they sent you to me because they knew I needed something to live for. And they knew you needed someone to live with." Rosie reached out and took his hand. "I love you, Papa." It was the first time she'd called him that. Tom felt his heart crack open and heal all at once. "I love you too, sweetheart. Both of you. More than I ever thought I could love anything again." He kissed her forehead, checked on Billy one more time, and walked out onto the porch. The night was warm, the stars bright, the land stretching out forever in every direction. Tom stood there for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened, the pain and the loss, the fear and the courage. The moment a little girl walked out of the desert and gave him back his reason to live. He thought about Caroline, about Sarah, about the family he lost. He thought about Rosie, about Billy, about the family he found. And he realized something he should have known all along. A heart doesn't break to become useless. It breaks to make room for more love. Tom McAllister had spent 4 years believing he was finished, believing there was nothing left for him but empty days and lonely nights. He was wrong. Life had given him a second chance. A little girl with one good eye and a burned arm, who loved her brother more than she loved herself. A baby boy who laughed at everything and reached for the world with tiny, trusting hands. They had found each other in the middle of nowhere, in the worst circumstances imaginable. And they had become a family. Not by blood, not by law, but by something stronger than either. By choice. By love. By the simple, stubborn refusal to give up on each other. Tom looked up at the stars one more time. "Thank you," he whispered, to Caroline, to Sarah, to whoever or whatever had brought these children into his life. Then he went inside, closed the door, and slept better than he had in 4 years. Because he wasn't alone anymore. Because he had something worth living for. Because finally, after all the pain and all the loss and all the years of emptiness, Thomas McAllister had found his way home. And home, he now understood, wasn't a place. It was the people you loved. It was the people who loved you back. It was Rosie and Billy, sleeping safe in the next room, dreaming of tomorrow. That was home. That was family. That was everything.